Hey guys, how we doing today? Good? Good. Yeah, it's early, I know. So we're going to start off with just a quick little 2-minute video. It just covers a lot of statistics that'll kind of blow your mind. So we'll start with this and then we'll get right into our presentation.
We grow and produce enough food for everyone on the planet. Yet there are 870 million hungry people on the planet, and 2.5 million children die of malnutrition every year. Worldwide, we produce 27% more food per person today than we did 50 years ago, even as the global population has more than doubled. Yet in Europe and North America, each consumer wastes 210 to 250 pounds of food per year. As millions of people go to bed hungry, half of the food produced in the United States is wasted between the farm and the fork, discarded as a result of the inefficiency in the human-managed food chain. In the US, nearly 8% of the food is lost in production. The food industry loses 4%, supermarkets are responsible for 6%, restaurants contribute 15% of the food in the landfills, households throw away nearly 25% of the food they buy. The cost of this waste is about $165 billion annually. That's more than 5 times as much as we spent on foreign economic aid in 2011. This waste doesn't only affect people, the environment suffers from it as well. Did you know throwing away 1 gallon of milk is like throwing away 1,000 gallons of water? That's because it takes that much fresh water to produce 1 gallon of milk. A quarter of our water used for irrigation is used on food that is wasted. So when you throw away your food, you are throwing away all the water that it takes to grow, produce, and ship it as well. On top of that, an estimated 16% of methane emissions from our landfills are caused by food waste. By saving 15% of the food we normally throw away, we can feed more than 25 million Americans every year. If we start paying attention to what we waste, we can end up saving a lot more than just leftovers.
Alright, so who here can afford to throw away $2,000 a year? No one? Because we're all poor college kids. Apparently Americans can, because in the U.S. we throw away over $165 billion worth of food every single year. Was a B. Like no one in this room is ever going to make enough to cover that. Sorry guys, I hate to break it to you. And so that equates to about $2,200 for a family of 4. Now to put that in perspective, imagine the 92,500-seat Rolls-Royce Stadium, and picture the stadium filled to the brim with foods like fruits, vegetables, and meats. And now picture this stadium being trucked straight to a landfill. And that is how much food waste we produce every single day as Americans. There are multiple reasons for this, and as you can see from this graph, food waste is our largest source of waste. And one of these reasons is that food is relatively cheaper in the U.S. compared to countries around the world. Therefore, Americans typically buy more food than they can actually consume in a given amount of time. And then another reason for this is that Americans are obsessed with the aesthetic quality of food. So if food is dented, bruised, discolored, or shaped irregularly, Americans typically refuse to buy that food. And the former Trader Joe's company president, Doug Roach, even admitted that grocery stores routinely trash produce that is discolored or contains even minor blemishes. And another reason for the U.S. leading the food waste is that 90% of Americans prematurely throw away food that is perfectly fine to eat just because they misinterpret the expiration date on the label. Phrases like sell by, use by, or even best before can be very confusing to consumers, and therefore they will prematurely throw away this food even though it is perfectly fine to eat. And on September 16, 2015, the United States Department of Agriculture introduced the first ever food waste initiative. This food waste initiative calls for a 50% reduction of food waste by the year 2030. And as you can see here, these are some of the companies that have publicly committed to this initiative. And for example, Walmart stores, distribution centers, and Sam's Clubs have combined to donate roughly 3 billion pounds of food to organizations that distribute to people in need. And this roughly equates to about 2.5 billion meals given out through these 3 companies. And so now that you can see how big of a problem food waste actually is, you're probably wondering, what are some of the things that you can do to curb this problem? There are multiple ways to do this. Flash freezing your food, donating your food, composting your food, or even just buying less food in general. And now we will highlight some of these things that you can do every day to reduce this problem. First, we have composting. Composting is a natural process of recycling organic material, such as leftover fruits and vegetables, and placing it into soil to use as a strong source of fertilizer. Compost is so beneficial to the soil that it provides nutrients that aid plant growth. Farmers even jokingly refer to it as black gold. Another benefit to composting is that it enhances the natural ability for fruits and vegetables to actually fight common diseases, and it boosts their flavor and even their nutrition. Lastly, another benefit to this is that when you use compost, since it has these abilities to fight common diseases, we reduce the amount of chemical fertilizers that we actually need to use that harm our environment and the foods that we eat. And next we have recycling. And recycling is fairly similar to composting, but it differs in that instead of using leftover food scraps as fertilizer, we will instead use it as energy through a process called anaerobic digestion. And during this process, microorganisms break down the food enzymes in an enclosed area. And once this food begins to break down, it produces a gas called methane. And once methane is created, we can convert it into biogas and then convert that biogas into actual energy and heat. And both of these services are now being widely provided by waste providers across the country. So if you are interested in either one of these services, it is easy as calling your local waste provider and asking them if you can sign up. And I'll pass it on to you.
So one of the easiest ways that you guys can start to reduce your food waste starts at the grocery store, and that just starts with buying less food. And there's really two ways to go about this. The first way is to start pre-planning your weeks. Know what you're going to have for dinner, lunch, things like that, what you need to make those meals, how much you need, and then using that information in order to make detailed lists. I myself go to the grocery store all the time with like a 5 list, and just kind of go for the rest of it. I end up walking out with cookies, maybe some ice cream, because why not? But if you make that detailed list, it really stops you from walking out with those impulse items. You stop from buying way too much of something that you didn't need, like buying that 5 pounds of chicken instead of the 2 pounds. And then it also just stops you from buying things you already have at home. I don't know how many times I've gone to the grocery store and came home and been like, oh, I already had that. Fantastic. And then they sit in your cabinets forever. Now, as Chris talked about earlier, something related to the grocery store is our obsession with expiration dates. We have terms like he said, use by, sell by, best by. I have no idea what any of those mean. What does sell by mean? How good after sell by is my food still good for? And in America, we really use those dates more as their law instead of the guidelines that they really are. If we use our sight and our smell, we can really see that most food is good for a few days to even a few weeks after those dates have passed. So if your milk still smells good, odds are it is still fine. Now this third option is something that you can't really do at home, but it's something that you can push for the businesses you work for or for the business that you start. And it's called the Food Cam. And it was developed by these 2 researchers at MIT. It's really simple. You stick it in the break room, and whenever you have events with leftover food or anything like that, you stick the food underneath the camera and press the button. And when you press the button, it sends out a live video of the food along with an email to either company-wide or building-wide that says, hey, we have free food, come and get it. And as you can imagine, it has gone pretty quickly. So you guys might be asking, why should I go about reducing my food waste? And besides just the social and environmental impacts, it really comes down to your financials. And you can end up saving a lot of money. The first way is, if you're going to the grocery store and you're buying less food, obviously you're spending less money. It's as simple as that. The second way is that every time you throw away food that you can eat, it's like throwing cash away. You might as well just be taking your wallet and emptying out for the trash can. So if you're reducing your food waste, you can really end up saving a lot of money. Now the last kind of solution for you guys is one that I think has the best and biggest impact on our local communities, and that's donating food. So out of the 8.6 billion people in our world today, 1 billion go hungry. That's over 10% of the world's population. To me, that's insane, especially with the pure amount of food that we're throwing away. So you guys might be asking, how can I go about donating my food? And it really is as easy as start with just cleaning out your kitchen more than once a year during that spring cleaning binge, when you go through and you realize you had cans from 3 years ago. Just think about any time you needed cans for extra credit or food drives, you always had them, they were always there. So if you just start by cleaning it out maybe once a month, that little amount of food that you can donate can end up having a big impact. And then the second way is there's this really cool app out there, and it's called Copia. And it's basically a Tinder for food donors. So it matches food donors with those in need directly. You don't need food banks, nonprofits, things like that. But it allows people to see the impact that they're having, but it also allows that food to get directly to those who need it the most. So now that we've gone over some solutions, we're going to kind of persuade you more to adopt these solutions and go over the environmental impacts of our food waste. So in the United States alone, over 20% of our landfills consist of food waste. And if you were to take all of that food waste and make it its own country, it would be the third highest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, only behind America at number 2 and China at number 1. And the reason for that is because when it sits in the landfill and decomposes, it releases methane. And methane is 20 times more dangerous than carbon dioxide. 20 times. Like, we're breathing that in every day. It's ridiculous. Now, just besides the greenhouse gas effects, it also has the land and resource effects. So, according to the EPA, if we reduce our food waste, we conserve energy, resources, and land previously dedicated not only to the mass production of food, but to holding all the food waste that we're throwing away. So if we're reducing our food waste, we're freeing up those resources for other things, and then we're also reducing just the pure amount of land that we need to hold all this. So now that the U.S. has decided and committed itself to reducing its food waste in half by the year 2030, this really can't be done without everyone stepping in. It's time for our communities and our world to start understanding that we're in the middle of an epidemic. An epidemic that equates to filling the 1,400-foot Empire State Building 91 times. So guys, I really hope that one of the solutions we showed you guys today made you realize that it's a lot more simple to start reducing your food waste, and I really hope you guys decide to start reducing your food waste. Thank you.